All right, everybody, welcome back to Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. We've been talking about all kinds of things today, and now we're getting to something that is going to be super pressing for a lot of our seniors. And here to discuss it with me is Abigail Anderson, who is my colleague and a former admissions officer at Reed College. Hi, Abigail. How are you?
Hi, Beth. I'm doing well. Thanks for bringing me on for this segment.
Absolutely. Well, actually, so this is airing on December 3rd, and we know that in the next probably week or two from December 3rd, a lot of schools with priority deadlines, early action deadlines, and early decision deadlines are going to be releasing their decisions. However, it's only actually November 19th when we're taping this, and you had a student yesterday get into Tulane, which is very exciting, early decision.
So exciting and so shocking. I think he was on the phone or Zoom with me maybe 30 minutes after he got the decision, and he was still in shock. He knew the decision was coming, but was just floored
Right?
very early.
Very, very early. Yeah. So Tulane has over the years done that, although I didn't recall it being this early. And then I look back and said, oh, I guess sometimes it was. So
Yeah.
at any rate, if you applied early decision to Tulane, you already have your decision. And I hope you got good results. It seems as though some students that we worked with did. So that's always nice to start the year with that. And I think we've seen some other kids get into either Arizona State or the University of Arizona.
Mhm.
So we definitely are seeing that some decisions are starting to come out. But the big decisions are still coming. And really what we wanted to talk about today more than anything is just kind of what to expect, what you might receive. So let's talk about early action. What are typically the decisions that come for early action? What do those look like?
So the way I think about it is there are three possible outcomes from early action. You could be admitted, which is great,
Mhm.
celebrate, win. On the far end of the spectrum, you could be denied, which would be a disappointment. But I think we're going to talk about there's something to be learned from being denied in early action, and you can move forward with it as a learning experience.
Mhm.
But the third outcome is being deferred from the
Right.
early pool.
Right. And we're going to talk about actually next week, we have a segment on the show where we're going to be talking in detail about what do you do if you are deferred. But what are some key things that students need to understand about just in general? What does a deferral mean?
So I think, at its simplest, it's we are not giving you a decision right now.
Right.
You have to wait longer, or you get to wait longer.
Yeah,
Have to, I think is how students really see it.
I
But
know.
you have to wait longer, and we're going to read your application within the regular decision pool.
Right. Exactly. And I think at some schools that might mean that it actually gets a second read. At other schools, it could just mean that when they are considering their giant pool from regular decision, they're going to see where your application falls. And I think that's probably most common at schools with really big applicant pools where their admissions process is probably a little bit more numerical based, right? Where they're kind of looking at what were the grades, the rigor of the curriculum. Are you more or less falling into that group of students that we're admitting this year? Because we've determined that, this set, we're going to admit this many students and you fall within that group, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. One thing that I've seen, and I was curious about your thoughts, and we've seen it in the past where sometimes I suspect that students are getting deferred because they didn't get to the application. How frequently do you think that happens?
So you just I feel like you just read my mind. I had the exact same
I
thought,
just
which is
went there.
yeah, which is, oh, are we going to talk about that? I do think that it happens. And I was just thinking about reading articles in the last few days and thinking about how higher ed and admissions is changing right now because of COVID. I actually wonder if we're going to see more students deferred from early rounds this year because there might even be, there's schools that do tend to read numerically or really focused on grades and test scores might not have test scores for a lot of students this year. So I was conjecturing in my mind, like, oh, I wonder if we're going to see even more students moved into that larger pool and being deferred into regular this year. But that's definitely something that we see. I don't know if this is accurate. So you need to correct me, but I don't know if we've ever gotten confirmation from any school that that's truly what they're doing, that they haven't read the application. But I think we've seen on our end enough pattern over the years
Yeah,
to,
we have no confirmation. It's anecdotal. And
yeah,
I think we should stress that this is happening only at schools where where mostly it's a numerical read, where they are powering through tens of thousands of applications, probably with a smaller admission staff. But the more selective you get, those applications are all being read. And if you're reading as an admissions officer, you might be reading 7 days a week, and you might be reading from the second you wake up in the morning until you go to sleep at night. And maybe you're going to sleep at night at like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Those files are all getting read
oh yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. Right. So if
I
it's
always
holistic, they are.
I always joked that when I was an admissions officer at 24, I was wearing reading glasses. Like that's how bad my eyesight became in
Right.
reading season because that's how much we were reading.
Right. You're just,
24.
yeah, exactly. It's not right. I didn't like wearing them at 50. And now look, I have like glasses that I actually need all the time, not just reading glasses, but I'm powering through right now, like trying to do it without them. But what's interesting here is we are talking about early action.
Yeah.
What's a key point to know? Because I do think this is, I mean, early action, and really we should lump priority in here too, because they're really basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Because when you get accepted, what's next for the student?
You still have to apply everywhere regular decision, right? So if it's early action, you're just getting an earlier answer
Hmm.
about your application. So you still want to move forward with your regular decision applications. You might, and I think we've talked about this a lot on the show in the past, you might change your list as a result of the decision that you were given. So maybe if you were admitted at an early action school that's really towards the top of your list and it's a school you can really see yourself enrolling at, you might shorten or remove some schools from your regular decision list. You might
Hmm.
save yourself the application fees or the time writing the essays. Um, if you are denied, you can think about, "Oh, what does that mean about my application, about my strength in the pool this year?" Maybe you'll change and add a few more no problem schools
Right.
or remove some of those far reaches, knowing what an answer was at an early school that was less of a reach.
Yeah, my favorite is when you get denied at the early or deferred at the early, and then you add more selective schools. This is
Yeah.
not logical, people. And I know it feels like, wow, they didn't take me, but I'm going to increase my chances of getting in. No, that's an early sign. And granted, not all schools make the same decision, but if it is something to probably pay attention to, that, you know, if you already knew you weren't going to be particularly competitive there, and then the decision confirms that, now is not the time to add more selective schools than the one that just deferred you. So just throwing that out there.
I totally agree with you. And I have this thought, Beth. I have a few students that in the past did the logical thing with their early action decisions, where maybe they were denied from an early action school and they, it hurts. It's hard not to take the heart out of it and it hurts. But they did take the time and spent about a week and then they got logical and they thought, okay, if I didn't get into the early action reach school, maybe I'll try to do early decision round two
Hmm.
at a school that's slightly more within range for me. And then that can turn out really well for
Yeah.
students. So
it-
it's hard to be logical when there's so much heart involved, but it's important to
Right,
be.
right.
Yeah.
Which is why I know, and I do want to get to early decision here too, but you made note of, maybe now those are fewer essays that you need to write. I think we both want to be clear here. You should be getting all your applications done before you get decisions, because it is, no matter what you expect, no matter if it was a flyer that you were throwing out there, like, I don't think this is going to happen, but I'm going to throw it out there. The second you press submit, you start to believe it's going to happen. And when you hear no, that is very hard. And I've seen kids who knew that it was probably going to be no still be really heartbroken by a no. And you know what you don't want to be doing? Writing application essays for schools that you really like, that you have a good shot at getting into from a position of total and utter disappointment, and you kind of don't even care anymore.
Or
I mean,
panic.
right? It,
Yeah. Or worse,
it's
you're panicking and now you're freaking out and you've lost your confidence. That's also
right.
terrible.
All of these things,
Yeah.
terrible. Get it done before you hear, and then feel good about the work that you've done. Feel confident that you have put your best work on paper. And the only way to do that is to be working on it steadily and be in the right frame of mind. And I have never met a student who was in the right frame of mind after they got denied from their early choice. So, all right, early decision, same thing, right? You could get an accept, you could get a defer, you could get a deny. One thing I will throw out there for everyone is that not all schools deny in the early rounds. Not all schools defer in the early rounds, right? So we know some schools that either do admit or deny, and then we know schools that either do admit or defer. And so if you don't get in, they just move everybody who doesn't get into the regular pool, or they make the decision right then. And if you're not in, you're out. So anyway, let's go to early decision. Same thing, right? You could get one of three decisions depending on the school. What do they mean in an early decision context?
So you're admitted, you're going. Like,
Yes,
congrats, you're
big
in.
difference.
Big difference. You need to enroll at that school. I will say, to your point earlier, Beth, my student who was admitted early decision at Tulane yesterday only had one supplement remaining for his regular decision list. So he did a lot of work that he likely didn't need to do, but I think the fact that he did it contributed, he's on top of the ball. Then deny, you're out. It's over.
Yes,
You can't submit a second application. You can't apply regular decision now. You're done.
yes,
So it's time to just say goodbye to that school. And then defer, same thing as early action. If you're deferred in early decision, you're being moved into the regular decision pool. One thing that's good to, I think people get confused about is if you're deferred in early decision, your early decision agreement is now gone,
yes. That is
right? So like you
important.
don't have to go to that school if you're admitted in regular decision. You get to make a choice again.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, I think the key element, right, for early decision, if you're in what you said, you're going and you need to withdraw all your other
Yeah.
applications, that's the agreement that you made with that institution. But if they opt not to take you in that early round and defer the decision, then all bets are off. Now, anything else is available to you. I've seen too confusion around, well, can I apply early decision too? I didn't get a decision from my early decision one school. Well, you did get a decision. They
Right.
decided not to make a decision yet. And that means that the binding portion of the agreement is completely over.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anything else that you would add before we wrap up?
I would just add that if you are in early decision, you still need to like fill out your enrollment form. You still need to submit a deposit. You still need to probably keep even more of an eagle eye on your email inbox for forms because you're going to have a longer wait. A lot of that stuff, that kind of administrative stuff is going to come to you in April. So you're not going to hear from this school for a while, which can feel weird, but you need to keep on top of what they need you to do to actually formally accept their offer of admission, even though it is binding.
Right, exactly. So you can't just assume, all right, I'm in, then they know I'm coming and
Yep.
everything. Nope, there is stuff for you to do. And really quickly, I would add that for some early action schools, they're going to start to send you a lot of forms that are going to look really official, right? That they're going to want you to fill out. Any quick
Yes.
advice on that? Really quickly, we have literally 30 seconds.
You have until May 1st to make your choice.
Right.
Like you don't need to do anything until May 1st. Don't let them intimidate you into making an earlier decision if you don't want to.
That's exactly right. Maybe you want to do a housing deposit but look at the fine print. Sometimes that will be refundable. If it's not refundable, then that's a decision as a family to make. But you are exactly right. Do not let them pressure you into giving them an earlier answer because that's not part of the agreement of early action, right?
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah.
all right, Abigail, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's so much fun.
Yes, well, and we love having you. We love doing these. Next week, Ian is going to be here. hosting, and they're talking about the supplements for Elon and University of Miami, the one in Florida, what to do if you're deferred. So we talked a lot about what to expect. Next week, we're going to dig into that, and also how to keep those scholarship and financial aid flowing. I believe that's if you've gotten some already and now you're going to be a sophomore in school, we're going to be talking about how do you ensure that that money's still coming in. And don't forget, check out our blog.getintocollege.com. And we're here every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. Pacific.